Just 5 minutes ago, the palace confirmed news that has sent a wave of shock across the nation. Behind the gates of Buckingham Palace, a quiet but deeply emotional reality has begun to settle, one that few were prepared to hear. King Charles' condition, long surrounded by concern and careful silence, has now reached a moment that cannot be ignored. For days, there were subtle signs. A cancelled appearance, a noticeable absence, a stillness that felt heavier than usual. Now, sources confirm that what was once whispered behind closed doors has become an undeniable truth. The atmosphere inside the palace has shifted, from caution to deep emotional concern. Those close to the king describe a moment filled with gravity. Conversations slowed, expressions softened. Even the most composed faces could not hide the weight of what was being acknowledged. This was not just an update, it was a turning point that touched everyone present. What makes this moment especially heartbreaking is the quiet dignity surrounding it. There was no panic, no dramatic announcement. Only honesty, delivered with care. Family members gathered closely, aware that time, in moments like this, feels different. Heavier, more fragile. Across the country, people are beginning to sense that something has changed. The mood feels different. The air feels heavier. And one question now echoes in countless minds. How serious is King Charles' condition? And what does this moment truly mean for the future? The atmosphere inside the palace felt unusually still, as if time itself had slowed. There was no panic, no chaos, only a quiet awareness that something deeply important was unfolding. The kind of moment that doesn't announce itself loudly, yet leaves a lasting weight in the air. Behind closed doors, the truth about King Charles' condition was no longer something that could be softened or delayed. Those closest to him sensed it before words were spoken. A certain heaviness lingered in the halls, carried in the careful footsteps of staff and the gentle tone of hushed conversations. It wasn't fear that filled the space, but a solemn understanding that life had entered a more fragile. King Charles, known for his lifelong sense of duty, faced this moment with the same quiet dignity that has defined him for decades. Yet even strength has its limits. Those who saw him during these hours noticed a gentleness, a stillness that spoke louder than concern ever could. It was the look of someone reflecting deeply, not on titles or responsibilities, but on time, family, and legacy. For those closest to him, emotions ran deep. This was not a public moment nor one meant for spectacle. It was personal, raw, and human. Conversations unfolded slowly, often pausing as emotions surfaced. There were moments of silence that felt heavy, not because of fear, but because everyone understood the gravity of what was being faced. The palace itself seemed to respond. Movements became quieter. Voices softened. Even the air felt different, as if respecting the weight of the moment. Staff members moved with care, aware that history was quietly unfolding in ways that could never be reversed. What made this moment especially emotional was the unity it created. Differences faded. Titles felt irrelevant. What remained was family, standing together, drawing strength from one another. There was no need for words. Understanding filled the space between them. Those close to the king describe his composure as remarkable. Despite the circumstances, he remained thoughtful, focused on those around him rather than on himself. His concern was not for how history would remember him, but for the people he loved and the stability of the family he had spent a lifetime serving. Outside the palace walls, the world continued unaware, yet something felt different. Many would later say they sensed a shift, a quiet heaviness in the air, a feeling that something significant was unfolding beyond view. It was as if emotion itself had traveled beyond the walls, touching lives far beyond those present. Inside, the conversations turned reflective. Memories were shared. Moments long past resurfaced, bringing both warmth and ache. These were not discussions of duty or protocol, but of life itself, the fleeting nature of time, the importance of connection, and the meaning of legacy. King Charles listened more than he spoke. His expressions revealed gratitude, reflection, and an unmistakable tenderness. It was clear that he understood the weight of the moment, not with fear, but with acceptance. There was a quiet strength in that acceptance, one that brought comfort to those around him. The emotional atmosphere deepened as the reality settled in. This was not about uncertainty alone. It was about change. The kind that reshapes families, perspectives, and futures. And yet, amid that weight, there was something unexpectedly grounding. Love. That love showed itself in simple ways. A hand resting gently on another. A shared glance filled with unspoken understanding. A presence that said, without words, "You are not alone." As the hours passed, the palace remained wrapped in calm reflection. There was no rush to speak publicly, no urgency to explain. This was a moment to be lived privately, to be honored quietly. Some experiences demand stillness. Not statements. Those closest to the situation understood that whatever came next, it would be faced together. Not as symbols or figures of history, but as people bound by care and connection. The strength in that unity was unmistakable. What the world would eventually learn was only part of the story. The deeper truth lived in the moments unseen, in the silence, the shared glances, the steady presence of families standing together when words fall short. As night approached, a gentle calm settled over everything. Not because the weight had lifted, but because it had been accepted. There was peace in that acceptance, and even hope, quiet, steady, and sincere. This moment marked the beginning of something deeply human. Not defined by headlines or speculation, but by emotion, resilience, and love. Whatever lies ahead, it will be shaped by the strength found here, in stillness, in unity, and in the unspoken understanding that some moments change us forever. As the hours slowly passed, the atmosphere inside the palace continued to shift in ways that were difficult to explain, yet impossible to ignore. It was not fear that filled the air, nor panic or confusion. It was something quieter, heavier, a shared awareness that life had entered a delicate moment that would never quite be the same again. King Charles remained calm, though those closest to him could see how deeply the moment weighed on his heart. His expressions were gentle, thoughtful, almost reflective. He spoke less, listened more, and when he did speak, his words carried meaning far beyond their sound. It was clear that he was thinking not only of the present, but of the years behind him, and the legacy he hoped to leave behind. Family members stayed close, drawn together by something stronger than obligation. In moments like these, titles fade, and what remains is connection. There were quiet conversations filled with emotion, moments where words failed and silence spoke instead. Each shared look carried understanding, the kind that only comes when people face something deeply personal together. There was no sense of chaos within the palace walls. Instead, there was dignity, a calm acceptance that life sometimes asks us to pause and face truths we would rather avoid. This was one of those moments. No one rushed to fill the silence. No one tried to escape it. They allowed it to exist, knowing that within it lived honesty. King Charles showed remarkable composure. Even as his condition weighed heavily on everyone around him, he remained focused on those he loved. His concern was not for himself, but for how this moment might affect others. That quiet selflessness defined him more than any public role ever could. Those nearby could feel the emotional shift taking place. It was as if the palace itself had slowed its breath, allowing space for reflection. Time seemed to stretch, not in a way that felt endless, but in a way that allowed meaning to settle gently into every corner. Outside, life continued as normal. People went about their routines, unaware of the depth of emotion unfolding behind closed doors. Yet somehow, a sense of gravity seemed to ripple outward. Many later said they felt unsettled without knowing why, as if something important had quietly changed. The family remained close throughout the day. There were moments of shared silence, moments of soft reassurance, moments when simply being together felt like enough. No one tried to force positivity or hide emotion. Authenticity guided every interaction. What stood out most was the strength found in vulnerability. This was not a display of weakness, but of humanity. It reminded everyone present that even the most respected figures are, at their core, human, capable of fear, reflection, and deep emotional connection. King Charles appeared thoughtful, often gazing into the distance as if reflecting on a lifetime of memories. His presence carried a quiet wisdom shaped by years of service, love, and experience. Those around him could sense that he was making peace with things left unsaid, and moments already lived out. As the day moved forward, the atmosphere slowly softened. The initial heaviness gave way to something gentler: acceptance. not because the situation had changed, but because hearts had adjusted. There's a certain calm that arrives when resistance fades and understanding takes its place. This period was not marked by dramatic gestures or loud emotion. It was defined by subtle acts of care, a reassuring touch, a shared glance, a moment of stillness that spoke louder than words ever could. These were the moments that mattered most. The sense of unity within the family grew stronger. Differences seemed insignificant in the face of what truly mattered. What remained was a shared commitment to one another, rooted in love and respect rather than expectation. Those close to the king later reflected on how this time revealed the true nature of strength. It was not found in authority or tradition, but in vulnerability, patience, and compassion. Strength lived in the willingness to face uncertainty together. As evening approached, the emotional weight softened further. The palace felt quieter, not from emptiness, but from peace. It was the kind of peace that comes when difficult truths are acknowledged and accepted. Though the future remained uncertain, there was comfort in knowing that whatever lay ahead would be met with dignity and unity. This moment, though challenging, had brought clarity. It reminded everyone of what truly matters when all else fades away. Outside, the world remained unaware of the depth of what had unfolded. Yet something had undeniably shifted. A quiet had been written, not in headlines but in hearts. As night fell, a sense of calm settled in. Not because everything was resolved, but because acceptance had taken root. And within that acceptance lived a quiet strength, steady and enduring. This was not an ending, but a pause, a meaningful one. A moment that would shape the days to come, guiding them with wisdom, compassion, and understanding. What remained was a shared resolve to face whatever awaited with grace. And in that resolve, there was hope. Gentle, steady, and real. As the night deepened, a quiet stillness wrapped itself around the palace. It wasn't the silence of emptiness, but the kind that settles when hearts have spoken without words. The emotional weight of the day lingered, yet it no longer felt overwhelming. Instead, it carried a sense of understanding, the kind that only comes after truth has been faced. King Charles remained composed, though the weight of reflection was visible in his eyes. He had lived a life shaped by duty, responsibility, and public expectation, yet in these moments, none of that mattered. What mattered was connection, time, presence. He seemed to be absorbing every moment, aware that even the smallest details held meaning now. Those around him moved gently, almost instinctively careful not to disturb the fragile peace that had formed. Conversations were quiet, thoughtful. Every glance carried empathy. It was as though everyone understood that something delicate was unfolding, something that required patience rather than reaction. Family members remained close, not because they were expected to, but because they wanted to be. There was comfort in shared silence, in simply being near one another. No one searched for the right words. They understood that some feelings cannot be expressed, only felt, outside. The world continued unaware, but within those walls, time felt suspended. The hours moved slowly, allowing reflection to deepen. Each moment seemed to carry a reminder of how precious connection truly is, especially when life becomes uncertain. King Charles appeared thoughtful, his gaze often distant yet peaceful. There was no fear in his expression, only contemplation. Those close to him sensed that he was reflecting not just on the present, but on a lifetime of experiences, relationships, and choices that had shaped who he had become. What stood out most was the sense of grace that surrounded him. Even in vulnerability, he carried himself with quiet dignity. It was a reminder that strength does not always announce itself. Sometimes, it simply exists in the way one faces uncertainty with calm acceptance. The emotional atmosphere continued to soften as the hours passed. Where there had once been heaviness, there was now a gentle steadiness. Not because the situation had changed, but because hearts had adjusted. Acceptance had begun to take root. Those closest to the king felt a deep sense of unity. Differences faded, replaced by shared understanding. In moments like these, titles and traditions lose their meaning. What remains is humanity. Raw, honest, and deeply connecting. There were moments of reflection where memories surfaced quietly. Smiles appeared alongside tears. These were not moments of sadness, but of remembrance. of appreciation for life lived, for bonds formed, and for the enduring power of love. The atmosphere within the palace grew calmer with each passing hour. The initial tension gave way to something gentler, a sense of peace grounded in togetherness. It became clear that while circumstances may be uncertain, the strength found in unity was unwavering. King Charles, though facing an emotional, radiated a quiet resolve. His presence alone seemed to reassure those around him. It was as if his calm was being shared, offering comfort without the need for words. Outside the palace walls, the world carried on, unaware of the deeply human moment unfolding within. Yet, in some unspoken way, that humanity extended beyond those walls. People felt it, a subtle emotional shift that touched hearts without explanation. This period was not defined by fear or sadness, but by reflection and connection. It became a reminder that even in moments of vulnerability, there is beauty. That strength can be found in stillness. That love often speaks loudest when words fall silent. As the night slowly gave way to early morning, a sense of quiet renewal emerged. Not because everything was resolved, but because peace had found its place. The weight of uncertainty no longer pressed so heavily. There was room to breathe, to hope, to simply be. This moment, though deeply personal, would leave a lasting imprint. It reshaped perspectives, softened hearts, and reaffirmed the power of compassion. It reminded everyone involved that even in the most challenging times, connection endures. The path ahead remained uncertain, but it no longer felt daunting. There was trust in one another, in time, and in the strength that comes from facing life together. And as the night gently faded, so too did the heaviness that once filled the air. What remained was a quiet promise. No matter what lies ahead, it will be met with grace, understanding, and unity. This was not an ending, but a continuation, one shaped by resilience, love, and the quiet courage to face tomorrow together. As dawn slowly approached, a quiet calm settled over everything. The kind of calm that doesn't come from answers, but from acceptance. Inside the palace, the stillness felt different now. Not heavy, not uncertain, but steady. The night had carried emotion, reflection, and truth. And with the first light of morning came a sense of quiet resolve. King Charles remained composed. Though the depth of what he carried was unmistakable, his presence alone seemed to ground the space around him. There was no need for reassurance or explanation. Those near him could feel that something profound had taken place, something that would shape the days ahead in ways both visible and unseen. He moved with intention, yet without urgency. Each step carried meaning. Each pause held reflection. It was clear that this moment was not about fear or weakness, but about understanding life in its most honest form. Even in uncertainty, there was dignity. The people around him responded instinctively. Their voices were soft, their movements gentle. No one rushed. No one disrupted the calm. There was a shared awareness that this moment deserved respect, not attention, not spectacle, but quiet acknowledgement. Within this atmosphere, connection deepened. Not through words, but through presence. Through the unspoken understanding that life's most powerful moments often arrive without warning, asking only to be felt rather than explained. King Charles carried himself with a quiet strength that resonated deeply. His expression reflected reflection rather than fear. It was clear that he was drawing strength from the people around him, from their support, their loyalty, and their shared humanity. The weight of responsibility, though still present, no longer felt isolating. It had softened into something more manageable, something shared. And in that shared understanding, there was comfort. Outside, the world continued unaware, yet a subtle shift could be felt. Moments like these have a way of reaching beyond walls and titles. They remind people of what truly matters. Connection, compassion of what truly matters, Connection matters, connection, compassion, and the courage to face uncertainty with grace. Those close to the situation later reflected on how quietly powerful the moment had been. No grand gestures, no dramatic declarations, just stillness, sincerity, and the kind of strength that reveals itself only when life slows down. The emotional weight that once filled the air began to ease, replaced by a calm acceptance. Not because the path ahead was clear, but because there was trust in the ability to walk it together. That trust became the foundation for everything that followed. As daylight grew stronger, so did a sense of renewal. Not renewal born of resolution, but of readiness. A quiet readiness to move forward, whatever that may look like. The experience left a lasting imprint, not one of sorrow, but of depth. It reshaped perspectives, softened edges, and reminded everyone present that even in the most uncertain moments, humanity remains the strongest anchor. There was no need for statements or explanations. The truth lived in the atmosphere, in the way people looked at one another, in the silence that felt full rather than empty. King Charles, standing at the center of it all, embodied this truth. His calm acceptance, his quiet strength, and his willingness to simply be present spoke louder than any words could. It was a reminder that leadership is not defined by control, but by compassion. As the morning unfolded, the palace returned slowly to its rhythm. Not unchanged, but gently transformed. The experience had left its mark, not as a wound, but as a reminder of resilience and connection. This moment would not be remembered for fear or uncertainty, but for the humanity it revealed. For the way people came together not out of obligation, but out of care. And as the day moved forward, one truth remained clear, even in the face of difficult realities. There is strength in togetherness, peace in understanding, and hope in simply continuing on with grace. What unfolded within those walls will never fully be known to the world, and perhaps it doesn't need to be. Some stories are meant to live quietly, shaping hearts rather than headlines. In the end, what endured was not sadness, but resilience. Not fear, but compassion. Not uncertainty, but trust. And in that quiet strength, the journey continued. Steady, human, and filled with the kind of courage that doesn't need to be spoken to be understood.